Well, my friend Kip Tyndall, he said that none of us are aware of the power of our own wake. We all have an impact, and then that ripples out. The impact ripples out and ripples out and ripples out. We're never aware of it. So, of course, it's always gratifying for anybody to come and say, yeah, you've had a positive impact on my life, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's why it's very important that we be as open-hearted and as loving as we can, because we can also have negative impacts. If we're full of hate and judgment and anger, then we can have a negative impact. But I appreciate you telling me that.
What does it take to build a $22 billion company? Well, we're going to answer that question today with the most famous grocer and my friend, John Mackey, the co-founder of Whole Foods Market. I am so lucky that I got to meet John several years ago and really understand as you're building a company from a kid with a dream into over 400 stores with shareholders. And as you get bigger and bigger, guess what happens? More and more people want to do it their way. They want to pull the original vision out of you. This was a live podcast with an audience of about 45 people here in Austin, Texas. And I got to tell you, what I found through my podcasting is that when you do it with a live audience, it electrifies the room. It electrifies the guest speaker. John was just so incredible. And it was just so much fun. And also some of the questions that come up in real time from a real audience just makes the whole episode so much more interesting. So be on the lookout for more of these episodes in the coming year. What's so amazing about this live episode filmed in front of an audience with John is really how he recounts his tales of staying true to his vision, valuing his team, and always leading with love, genuinely first. And how many entrepreneurs do you know talk about leading a company, especially a company the size of Whole Food, with love? You're going to get so much advice, philosophy, and an interesting, unique way that John looks at the universe that I think it's really not only going to change the way you do your business, but maybe change the way you do your life, including some tips on how to eat. Also, John is now doing, after Whole Foods, Love.Life, a whole new revolutionary organization on health and wellness for you as a person. Listen as John digs into not only his past, but what he's doing now to serve humanity with love leading. Enjoy the episode. Well, I wanted to start, John, first of all, I'm really excited to have you here because I know we've had coffee, we've talked about this, and I really wanted to share with you even more of my story that I haven't shared with you, and wanted to get some questions after reading your book that I was just mesmerized by. I'm just excited to ask you some questions too. I want to start, Adrian and I, when we were doing the business, we were actually a little further along. We've been together for 20 years. I think dates change when you've been married so long, you kind of forget. We weren't quite struggling when I read your book.
Well, you said there were 16 good years, so four bad years.
Actually what was going on was we were actually starting to expand quite a bit. People found out Austin was just going through the beginning of that real estate escalation. And I had this weird thing of having a really dark chapter in my life that made no sense. This is my wife, Janet, we had 2 beautiful kids. Everything seemed just fine, but I was going to work and he had to put me through this. I was going to work in tears, everything's going great. And I'm feeling darker than ever. And I was really having a hard time figuring out what that was about. It was a really, really rough year. Some of you know me super well in this room who kind of know when I went through that time. And, I really didn't know how to get out of it. Sometimes the doctors wanted to just give you lots of medicine and numb you out, but I didn't want to just be numbed out. I wanted to figure out what was it. I mean, everything I asked for, I had gotten. So what was it? And it was reading Conscious Capitalism. There was a couple things, but what was so pivotal with that book is I realized that business could be a force for good. This idea of stakeholders, having stakeholders on every level and not just your shareholders or your stock members, was such a big concept that it really changed my trajectory of all of a sudden I went from oh my God, I'm in real estate finance. I mean, what could be more boring than saying the words real estate finance? And it gave me an entirely new creative way to think about how can you bring purpose to that. So I wanted to, first of all, just thank you. I imagine you have had a lot of impact on a lot of people. And I even wanted to ask you, when you were talking about conscious capitalism, which was so ahead of your time, what impact do you think it's had on entrepreneurs like me? How do you take that in, looking back at what you kind of declared such a long time ago?
Well, my friend Kip Tyndall, founder of the Container Store, he said that none of us are aware of the power of our own wake, meaning we have an impact on people, all of us do, we all have an impact. And then that ripples out. The impact ripples out and ripples out and ripples out. We're never aware of it. So, of course, it's always gratifying for anybody to come and say, yeah, you've had a positive impact on my life, so thank you very much. And, none of us know that. You don't know the full impact you've had on other people as well.
Yeah.
That's why it's very important that we be as open-hearted and as loving as we can, because we can also have negative impacts. If we're full of hate and judgment and anger, then we can have a negative impact. But I appreciate you telling me that. Thank you.
Yeah, it really was incredible. I want to start, if we can, talking about your book, The Whole Story, which was my obsession this summer. I feel like you were like on the cruise with me and my family. And the first thing is I wanted to talk about, I had no idea, but we actually met with Brett Hertz, Austin 100, but you talk about in your book that really your late teens and your early 20s were about spiritual transformation, experimenting with different things, including psychedelics, and also kind of shedding yourself of expectations from your parents, what you thought you were going to be. I'm just wondering during that time, and you mentioned that a lot of what Whole Foods became, the idea and even the culture really came from those formative years. And I'd love to just hear from you, like, what was it that was happening during those years that gave you this seed?
I actually recommend that everyone in this room at some point write a memoir of your life. It's because it's only looking backwards retrospectively that a lot of your patterns and threads, they start to make sense, that they didn't make sense necessarily when you're going through it. It's also a gift you'll give to your children and your grandchildren and your descendants. In fact, the best present I ever got in my life was my sister put together this a few years ago. She wrote up sort of the story of our family. And, I didn't even know that much about my parents, let alone my grandparents, my great-grandparents. And it was such a gift. It's something I really cherish. So I do recommend that. One of the things I learned, kind of looking backwards retrospectively, is that you're familiar with Joseph Campbell's work and the hero's journey?
Yeah.
I think we're all called to a hero's journey. Every one of us is called by a deeper part of our spirit to answer the call of our heart. So I was looking for a meaning of life when I was in my teens and, trying to come to terms with what I was going to do in life and what was important and trying to answer that call. And I didn't know I was trying to answer a call. I just felt the yearning. And you have to break away. Your parents are programming you, and so is the culture programming you to go a certain direction. And in my case, what my mother wanted more than anything, and she named me after her father, she wanted me to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And, or at least something respectable. A lawyer, an engineer, anything that, I turned out to be a grocer. And it was, I tell the story in the book, and the last time I ever saw my mother was on her deathbed. And she was dying. I knew she was dying, and she'd already had a stroke, and she was bedridden. And she said, John, I just want you, I'm dying. And I said, yes, but we all die, and hopefully you won't die for a long time. She said, well, I think I'm going to die sooner than you think. And I want you to make a promise to me. I want you to promise me that you'll go back to school and finish and get your college degree and make something of yourself. And I said, in all the pride of somebody that's 30 years old, I said, no, I'm not going to go back to school. I'm going to build Whole Foods in this great company. And she says, John, you're just a grocer. And I said, what do you mean just a grocer? We've got 4 stores and we're going to have a lot more stores. She says, we gave you a fine mind and you're wasting it. You could be a doctor. You could be a lawyer. You could be somebody. And I said, I don't care about any of that. I want to sell healthy food to people. And so my mother died very disappointed, she died just a couple of months later. That was the last time I ever saw her. Yeah. So I had made this decision already. And I suppose, so if you want to recount a little bit of that, when I was 18, after my senior year in high school, heading off to Trinity in San Antonio, I went back and forth between Trinity and University of Texas in Austin. I became a born-again Christian. I'd fallen in love with this young woman, and I always joke that I look in her eyes and I see Jesus there. and And so I did that, and I joined a group when I was at Trinity called the Navigators, and did that for about 2 years, but I eventually dropped that because of the problem of evil. So you know the problem of evil, right? That it's like, if God is all powerful and all knowing and all good and all loving, then how can we have so much pain and suffering in this world? That doesn't add up, right? So it was ultimately the problem of evil that moved me away, and then I went into my atheistic stage. However, I also at about age 20, I took LSD for the first time. And that was like, whoa, there's a lot more to this universe than I thought. You know, the simplistic, and I was also studying philosophy. I went to study philosophy at the University of Texas and religion at Trinity. I went back and forth between those two universities for different reasons, because I wanted to study philosophy and religion, and I couldn't do both of those at either one. So I kept going back and forth. And then when I was about 20, just turned 22 in Austin, I didn't know what I was going to be. I was actually thinking I was going to be a bartender, because I didn't want to go to graduate school and study philosophy. I just thought that was going to be a really sterile life. And I thought, bartenders, they're gonna be philosophers, right? While they're handing out drinks, they'll be talking about, the meaning of life and whatnot. So I was practicing that, and I was not very happy. And I just took a dose of LSD. I didn't know how, and it was a huge dose. I just didn't know it. I mean, you didn't have any kind of controls back then. And I did experience, an ego death. The ego dissolved. I merged into the one. And that changed my life forever, because it was like, I don't know how long I was there, for an infinite amount of time. There's no time. It's timeless. There's no separation. There's just the one being. And that's when I realized there is just the one being. That's all there is. Just the one being. We're all manifestation of the one. We just have our separate egos. We think we're separate. But it's just the same being living out all possibilities in the multiverse. And that woke me up to like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want to do in life. I can create whatever I want to create. It's all an adventure. And I stopped, mostly let go of a lot of fear then. It's like, what's there to be afraid of? Sure, you're going to die. I've died a million billion times. And then it just continues on, because the essence of what we are is immortal. And I got that in a very deep way. And then pretty soon after that, I moved into this vegetarian co-op, a commune really, called Prana House. And I wasn't a vegetarian. In fact, I ate junk food.
And you did it chasing, there was a girl you liked. There was a reason why you did it. Was it your girlfriend or a girl you liked?
No, I thought I might meet a girlfriend. Because I was interested in all things counterculture. I wanted to be a hippie. So, I wanted to grow my hair long, and I wanted to hang out with, other hippies. So I joined and I figured a vegetarian co-op, there'd be a lot of them, and there were. So I met Renee, who ended up being the co-founder of Saferway and then Whole Foods Market. And in fact, I tell the story. I was working I had a food awakening. I became a vegetarian. First time I thought our bodies were just like a car, right? You go in to like McDonald's and you fill up on, you eat French fries and McDonald's, and you're like fueling up a car. It never occurred to me that food actually, made you healthy and you could nourish your cells. That was all what I discovered at Prana House. I learned how to cook. I became the food buyer for the co-op. I had found my hero's journey. Oh my God. I was utterly transfixed with this idea of, oh my God, this food really makes a difference. The planet's being poisoned. We need to change the agricultural system. We need to grow whole foods, and people need to eat differently. So I awoke all that at a very young age. And then I worked for the small natural food store, and called the Good Food Company. Nobody here is old enough, I probably remember Good Food, but they had 5 stores, and Wheatsville was around back then, and there was another co-op called Woody Hills. I was a member of all of those things at one time or another. So anyway, I come back to the co-op. I left working there, and I thought, I remember I was in love. I loved all the customers. I loved all the people I was working with. I was just thinking to myself, I could do this. This is within my realm of competence. I can actually have my own store. This would be cool. And I went back and I talked to Renee. I grabbed her hand, looked her in the eye and said, hey, Renee, what do you think if we open up our own natural food store? And she grabbed my hand, looked me in the eye and says, oh, Mac, oh man, that'd be so cool. Let's do it. And so we did. And if Renee had said, what do we know about this? That's a stupid idea. My life, I probably wouldn't be up here today.
Wow.
Yeah. Might have happened. So we did it, and we started the first called Safer Way. We didn't know anything. We didn't know what we were doing. I had never taken a business. I studied philosophy and religion. I'd never taken any business classes. Renee, she ran the cafe because we're talking about, I'm 24, Renee's 20 this time, and she had been a Domino's pizza delivery. So we put her in charge of the cafe. I could run the store because we lived in this house that's now the Headwater School on 8th and Rio Grande. And we lived there. We lived on the third floor. We weren't supposed to. But, we couldn't, we were working, 80 hours a week in the co-op duties. We couldn't do that. So we moved out of Piranha House, moved into there. And we didn't even have a shower or a bathtub or anything. And we took showers in the Hobart dishwasher. You'd sit up there and you could just get under where I'm pretty sure that violated most of the health regulations. But when you're young and it was an adventure, and then I'm not going to tell you the whole story. It's in the book, but
the book is a must read. I mean, the book is so well done.
But so you asked about the psychedelics, so that's how that got me started. And then I'll just tell you one other thing. Then back in 1984, another psychedelic experience, although this is not technically psychedelic, I did MDMA for the first time. And this was when it was still legal, actually, in 1984. And I was with a group of people, and that had a transformative effect on me. I woke up, I realized on that, I was like, it's all about love. There's nothing more important than love. Love is the meaning of life. Love is the meaning of everything. And that changed Whole Foods. I remember I have a chapter in the book called Wacky Mackey, because we merged with a small natural food store called Clarksville Natural Grocery before we started the first large Whole Foods market. We moved from Safer Way to Whole Foods, and the two partners, Craig Weller and Mark Skiles, and Mark nicknamed me Wacky Mackey because I wanted to make Whole Foods the most loving company in the world.
Yeah.
And he says, what's this bullshit? You're the loving company in the world. He says, that's a damn MDMA you did. You are like a nutcase. And I said to Mark, I don't see why we can't build a company based on love. And he says, because it's nuts. We don't care about, let's just build a grocery company. That's all we need to do. And just, come back to earth, John. Mark ended up leaving 1 year later because we had irreconcilable differences. And he said, you're going to wreck this company. It's going to go bankrupt I was the CEO. You're going to wreck it. And so I want to sell all my stock, which he did. I have to say that was a very bad financial decision.
Bad decision.
So anyway, I think I've answered that question.
Yeah.
And then, I continued. I started to move away from psychedelics, but I always continued. I've been a student of A Course in Miracles, and I started studying that in 1984. So I've been studying that over 40 years, and that's been my major spiritual guide, you might say.
John, what I see in you, and I see it in probably my closest friends, like Brett Hurt in the back there, is heart-centered entrepreneurs. Really, Tristan, I can just go through this room here. Daniel, I could just go.
Now you got to name everybody.
I got to name everyone in the damn room. Oh, well. And what's interesting, though? I'm now that you're episode 70 of Investing on Purpose. And the only person who's mentioned the word love as part of business is Mr. Brett Hurt in the back there. Brett, who's one of the most successful serial entrepreneurs that I know. I asked him, I said, what is your secret sauce? And he says, it starts with love. Every company starts with love. And from love, we grow. And literally, it's amazing that you're the only one out of 70 episodes that's mentioned love, and now you're number 2, John. And so,
I'm
John,
always following behind Brett.
So, John, I want to ask you talk about in the book, and you say that love is one of the most underutilized resources in business. And one of the things that really I couldn't believe when I was reading your book was just as you got more successful, how many people tried to basically jeopardize the company. There was shareholders trying to jeopardize. There was equity that thought they were smarter than you. There was employees. There was leadership things. And as you got bigger and the stakes got higher, they were finding more and more nefarious ways to try to really knock you out in some ways and run the company corporately. And yet you mentioned in the book, like you were able to stay on the course of love in spite of it. You still, after all that, could love the company. You could even love the people that were trying to betray you. And you could love actually what you built there, which you built such an incredible community with the employees. How do you go that deep? Because that's one thing to say it. And it's another thing when your very baby's being potentially pulled away.
So let's be very clear. I am far from a perfect being. And, I certainly, sometimes I went into fear. Sometimes I'd be angry. It's not like I was always in a perfect, loving state.
Yeah.
These challenges are ways that you learn and grow. I'm going to get back to that question, but one of the questions I get asked all the time by journalists, and this might even be on your list of questions. It's like, if you could go back and change something, one thing, what would you change? And I always first I start out by a joke of it. I say, if I went back and tried to tell my younger self anything, he'd tell me to get screwed, old man. I'm going to do what I want to do. He wouldn't have listened. Or I'd go back and tell him, do not get involved with that woman under any circumstances. She's going to make your life miserable. But the real, I think the truthful answer is, I wouldn't tell that younger self anything, because my life has turned out to be amazingly well. And I made a ton of mistakes, but those mistakes were how I continued to grow. And if I hadn't had those mistakes, I wouldn't be the same person that I am today. So in a sense, I think that's the best and honest answer, is that you have to, it's kind of like your children. You don't want them to kill themselves, but they need to grow and make their own mistakes. And that's how they're going to become better people, right? And so...
But it sounds like you were able to take what could have been conflict and you turned it into somehow compassion at the end, which is it's a pretty hard thing to do.
In the book, I talk a lot about how many of you read The Lord of the Rings or saw the movies, right? Okay, most people have at least seen the movies. Well, there's the ring of power. It's a great metaphor because very few people can wear the ring of power and not be corrupted by it. And the three things that corrupt people in this world, not everyone are corrupted by it, but money, power, and fame. Because people believe if they have those, they will be happy, that they will find love. In fact, those do not bring you happiness or love. They frequently bring you envy, because people want to wear the ring of power. They want to take it from you. If you have it, they want it, and they'll take it. They want to try to take it from you. So being the CEO of Whole Foods was a ring of power, and other people coveted it for various reasons. And so one of my closest friends is a guy named Dan Buettner. He's the guy that does the Blue Zones. And did anybody see the Blue Zones, the Netflix on the Blue Zones?
Yeah.
Well, so Dan had like 125,000 Instagram followers before that series came out. Now he's got 1 million. And now he's being viciously attacked. He says, John, all these people are attacking me. I said, Dan, you're wearing the ring of power. They're envious of you. Yeah. They covet what you have. So if you don't want that, then, he signed up for season 2 on the Blue Zones and Netflix. So I said, you should maybe not do that. Or you have to understand what's going on. You're going to be attacked. You're going to be hated. That's the way it is. And if you're not willing to live with that, then you can go back to a quieter life. But if you want to continue to put forth your mission in life, then the more successful you are, the more people are going to want to take it from you or at least run you down. That's just the nature of the beast. So buck up. And so he's bucking up.
Nice. Janet, my wife, always says, send those people love and light. When they throw something dark at you, you just throw love and light back at them and just remember who you are. When you can.
Or I play a game. The game is, can you lift their spirits up? They're trying to take yours down. That's the game. If you lift their spirits up, you win. And I'm just an FYI. I'm doing a TED Talk in Vancouver in April. I got invited to do the TED, and they asked me to talk about, they only gave me 10 minutes. They asked me to talk about win, win, win. So without telling you the whole talk here, the win, win, win is you're looking for a win for you, win for me, and a win for everyone. And I end the talk by talking about, I was talking to my wife about it, win, win, win. And she says, John, you're overcomplicating this. This is much more simple than just a win, win, win. I said, that's really simple. It's really simple to understand. She says, I know something simpler. And I said, okay, what is that? She says, well, just love everyone all the time, no exceptions. I thought about it. That's really actually
wow.
She's right again.
Wow.
So that's going to be how I end my talk. So I'm looking
That's
forward
awesome.
to that.
I'm going to shift a little bit. We're going to talk about community, but for those, because with Adrian's intro, I didn't actually talk about, this is a podcast. You guys are all part of a live podcast right now called Investing on Purpose. Ryan Moran over there was the one who helped get me started and said, let's go do a podcast, and really got me started doing this, and I'm having so much fun. One of the things, John, that I'm doing right now on my podcast is I'm talking about this idea of four-dimensional wealth, what money is and what money isn't. Because to your point, everyone's coveting a ring that once you get there will not bring you fulfillment unless you actually have the other four areas covered. And I talk about the four dimensions of wealth being your purpose wealth. Do you have a purpose that you're actually working towards every day? Without it, what the heck are you doing? Your time wealth. Are you waking up happy, going to sleep peacefully, and living your day in presence? Is it your time or someone else's time? And then we talk about this community wealth. Are you connected to a community? And what are the relationships within that community? And of course, the one that you've an expert at is health. Health is the last tier. So in other words, money by itself, because you have all these financial planners telling you save as much money as you can, so when you're really, really old, you'll die with money. Well, that doesn't sound very fun. It sounds like a lot of scarcity. So how can you live with money in a way of being a fulfilled person by having those four dimensions all together? I want to talk to you about community, because you have done community in a way that I haven't, unbelievable. When you were putting, what was it about Whole Foods early on, as far as your employees? You talk about this actually in Conscious Capitalism too. You saw your employees, you heard them. They always felt seen and heard. And when you did your compensation models, which you talk a lot about, your decision-making structures, even the way you had local managers had the power to hire, you had local teams hiring. It was revolutionary in retail. And what were the key principles? What was it at that time? Because that was really revolutionary, creating these communities that made Whole Foods not a supermarket, but really a communal experience.
Well, the real thing to understand is we didn't know what the hell we were doing. No, I say that. We did not have a business background. None of us really did. And so we didn't really know how we were supposed to do it. Now, the shadow side of that is we reinvented the wheel a lot, right? We were making these discoveries that were like business 101. But we thought they were like revolutionary ideas. I remember when we decided to the very first Whole Foods market, we tried to do the same way we did when we did Safer Way, which is we had one big schedule, and you'd come in and maybe you'd start out working a cash register, and maybe you cut some cheese, and maybe you work the meat department, and maybe you stock some groceries, and people, it's like a Chinese fire drill, everybody's running around doing everything, which is what you do in a small store. But as you got bigger, it's like, maybe if we just had people stay at the cash registers, that we'd get more efficient and more productive. But when we first started doing that, it was like a revolt. It was like, I don't want to stay up the cash registers. Okay, well then you got to go back and cut cheese. And so it was, we thought we were making a major strategic breakthrough in that, but we were just reinvented the wheel. I say that because we also were completely free to innovate. Mm-hmm. Since we didn't know how we were supposed to do it, we had no institutional think that we had to overcome. Mm-hmm. So it allowed us to be incredibly innovative. It's like Elon Musk does. He always asks about first principles. Is this against the law of physics? I don't want to get us into any kind of political discussion, but it's kind of interesting now with Doge that he's in there looking, and it's like, well, why are we spending money this way? This seems like a waste of money. And when you're in that entrepreneurial creative phase, you're just asking those kind of questions like, I don't know, why can't we do it this way? And so we had this freedom, particularly in the early days, that allowed us to innovate and be incredibly creative. And I always believe that the group mind is more powerful than any individual mind. So if you can get people that are united through purpose, and you can unleash their creativity, and then you can iterate as a group on it, you're going to come up with incredibly innovative solutions. And that's what we did. And I mean, I will tell you, for a long time, it's not true anymore. Whole Foods is a very different company now, and it's a very different company since I left.
Yeah.
It's become a lot more centralized, and it's not so innovative any longer. But there was a time when I thought we came up with almost every good idea that was happening in the supermarket industry. People just copied us. So the answer to the question is, JP, is we didn't know how we were supposed to do it, so that gave us the freedom to innovate and create. And the good ideas we kept, and the bad ideas, most of the ideas we tried didn't work, and we just throw them away and do something different.
And most people probably naysay that. Whatever you did in the book, you mentioned a lot of times when you come up with a new innovation, of course you have your people, the first thing to do is just to say no and not innovate. So it really takes some courage and some vision to actually innovate and take a chance and take a risk.
That's the fun thing about being an entrepreneur. You get to be creative, you get to innovate, and that's really fun.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
I'm doing it again. I'm super excited about.
Well, we're going to talk about that. It's coming. I'm excited to hear about it too. I want to talk to you about health, because that's one of the pillars. Without health, without health currency, you don't have money currency, because there's nothing to really do if you're not.
Don't sacrifice your health currency for money currency. That's a very bad trade.
You obviously were an innovator with organic, foods. Everything you did really, really early on. And I'm just wondering, where do you still see as the biggest gaps in both food and wellness right now? And I know we're going to jump into the wellness part, but where do you see the gaps right now as we are today?
Well, the gaps are huge. I mean, the statistics are really discouraging. 74% of adult Americans are overweight, and 44% are obese, meaning they have a BMI over 30.
Wow.
I know, 74%.
And diabetes and pre-diabetics.
And the point is, that's not like peaked and started headed down. It's still going.
Jeez.
And over 50% of adult Americans are either diabetic or are pre-diabetic. So the biggest gap is, I can explain it to you very simply. Our genes are working against us. For almost an entire evolutionary history of humanity, we didn't get enough calories. And this is true for almost all animals too. So we like foods that have a lot of calories in them, and they have a lot of protein, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of fat. Any food that has a lot of calories in it tastes good. But they just weren't available for most of our evolutionary history. Maybe if you could pull down a mammoth before they went extinct, you could get some calories for a while, or you could gorge on it for a while. But in general, we were mostly gathering and hunting, and then living sort of as the food supply allowed us to live, and fasting, and not deliberate, but unintentional fasting would occur in the winter when food stores would get low. And so we mostly were trying to get enough calories. And so we crave calorie density. And now we live in an advanced capitalistic society where the market will give you a super calorie dense foods, not just 3 times a day, but all day long. You can eat all day long. You can eat donuts, and you can eat bacon, and you can eat steak, and fried chicken.
Double Big Mac with fries, just pouring the calories.
Exactly. And as a result, we're eating ourselves to death, or we're digging our graves with our teeth, as Bernard Shaw once said. So that's the problem is our genes. And you have to, once you become conscious that, oh, I get it, I just like foods that have a lot of calories in it, you can re-educate your palate to enjoy the foods that are good for you. This is the great secret. People think, well, I don't want to eat healthy because I will have no more pleasure in life. And they're stuck in what we could call the pleasure trap. But if you re-educate your palate to enjoy the foods that are good for you, your pleasure will not drop. You will find that you recalibrate, and all of a sudden those foods taste really good. For example, I just love the taste of fruits and vegetables. They just taste really good to me. And I eat about 15 servings a day of those. And those are the healthiest foods that you can eat. They have the most nutrient density per calorie. So anyway, we should eat real. Michael Pollan said it. Eat real food. Don't eat all this processed crap. Eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. There you have it. He said it, and I'll just repeat what he said.
No, it's great.
And we need to, we need to exercise. We need to manage stress. We should avoid toxins. I will tell you, I gave up alcohol 3 years ago. Never felt better in my life.
Yeah.
Really, really wish I'd given that up 30 years
And I know
ago.
everybody is hoping that Ozempic is going to save us all, but I don't think Ozempic's going to save us all.
Americans we want a magic pill. We do. We want something that doesn't require us to change anything. And and guess what? The market will give it to us. The pharmaceutical industry is working, 24/7 to come up with magic pills that will solve all our problems. That will reverse cancer, just a magic pill. And so we're very gullible. We'll swallow it if they produce it.
I was listening to Peter Diamandis was talking about the problems with Ozempic once you take it. There's some pretty severe problems. Like as soon as you stop taking it, you get really hungry and you gain all your calories back. You lose your muscle mass, so your face gets really droopy, and that doesn't come back. So you have to be on it for the rest of your life.
How long have you been taking it now?
Yeah, exactly. She would not let me. This is my guard over here, and I can't do it. What do you see in the government's role as far as going forward, as far as shaping us into taking a healthier lifestyle? Obviously, it has a tremendous cost on our medical system, all the medical things we're creating through our food. Do you think our government can save us or help us save us going forward?
I'm not a real believer in salvation through the government. It's kind of what you want the government to stop doing. The biggest thing they could do that would help the food supply is to stop subsidizing. They're subsidizing corn and soy, and most of that goes into animal feed. So our animal foods are artificially a lot less expensive than they would be if you allowed markets to really do their job. So food, and there's of course, they're also subsidizing the pharmaceutical industry, the chemical industries. I mean, you have regulatory capture is a real problem in the United States. That people that these industries that are very wealthy, they buy their influence right through lobbying, and so much. Part of what DOGE is showing is how corrupt the government is, and it's kind of like they say the best antiseptic is sunshine. So shining some light on where the government has been subsidizing stuff is quite interesting. But I don't think people have this illusion if we got the right people running government, that would solve our problems. But the ring of power is seductive. I mean, it's not just money that's seductive. Power is seductive, and so people want to get into government so they'll have power, and oftentimes that attracts people, the wrong kind of people, you might say, want that power. Yeah, and then they abuse it. Sorry, no quick fixes there.
No. I appreciate that. It's no quick fix on any of this stuff. You did say something, one thing, and actually Peter was saying it yesterday. It takes about 3 weeks for your palate to readjust. If you actually just follow your food for about 3 to 4 weeks, you'll actually start to change.
I'm laughing because I was on his podcast and I said that.
Oh, okay. I read it last night, and he has a new book on longevity that I was reading last night. So you talk, John, in your book, last thing about your book we're going to talk about is entrepreneurs often focus on external success, but you talk about the importance of the inner work. I just was curious, this is back to like purpose driven. What role has spirituality and purpose had for you as far as your journey as a leader? How would you describe that?
I mean, it's kind of been everything. It's been there all. It's not like it's a separate part of me. It's who I am. It's been my own journey. I mean, make no mistake about it. It's been a journey, right? I'm still on a journey. I'm still learning. I'm still learning and growing and evolving. And I think life is about that. Continuous learning, continuous growing. When you stop learning and growing, you might as well check out, because that's a big part of the adventure. And so I had to learn how to be a leader. I don't think that was natural for me. I'm more introverted. I'm definitely, particularly when I was younger, I was really socially awkward. And I've just, my wife likes to joke is about, when I first met John, he was reading all these books on, how to communicate better, he would start practicing listening skills, and empathy skills, and he says, but the thing is, he got better at it. So
you write about this in the book. Your first
didn't come
date
natural to me. I had to practice, and I still am practicing things. Those TED Talk people want me to practice my talk like 1,000 times before I do it.
Your first date, the way you described your first date to your wife, was an incredible story. It was pretty wild.
Do you want me to tell that story?
If you want to, I was actually going to Love.Life, but tell about your story. That was a pretty incredible first date you had. Improbable how it wound up.
First of all, my wife is the most amazing person I've ever known. Can you imagine for a moment? She has, I've known her, we've been together 35 years. And in 35 years, she's never said a negative thing about another person. Does that sound like human? I had a theory that she might be an alien for a long time because she doesn't perspire. She doesn't perspire. She doesn't sweat in any way. She never smells bad anywhere. My wife has no fingerprints. She has no fingerprints. She's an alien.
She's an alien. I think she's an alien.
That's my working hypothesis, and I'm saying this in case I mysteriously disappear. You should suspect possibly. Anyway, the first date was a blind date. There were no dating apps back in 1990, and I had broken up from my first marriage, and I asked my married friends if they were single, is there anybody they want to be going out with? I figured I can't ask my single friends because they're not going to give any good tips. And I can't ask my women friends because they're going to fix me up with all these really nice women that, may not be very hot. So I asked my married friends, and I got fixed up with my wife Deborah, it was a blind date. I'd never seen her. I'd never met her. And so I go to pick her up. Oh, and the only time we could get, she was a software consultant at that time. And so our schedules did not sync up well. So I was taking her to a wedding for her first date at Green Pastures. I don't think it's Green Pastures any longer. That's where the wedding was.
Yeah.
So I pick her up, and she answers the door. And the first thing that was, she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. It's like, oh my God, I just about melted down right there on the doorstep. And she invites me in, and I'm like socially awkward. I'm not sure what to say. And so I'm trying to make conversation. And then out of the blue, in my socially awkward way, I said, hey, would you mind if I look in your refrigerator? And she said, okay, that's kind of strange, but okay. Because I figure you're going to, if she's a junk food eater, I might as well figure it out really soon,
Incompatible.
And maybe
would you have not seen her again if she was a junk food eater?
She was really beautiful, but I might have made an exception. But she had a great refrigerator. And no, she... You're laughing, but I'm telling you, you can tell a lot about a person by what's in their refrigerator. I'm a grocer. After that, I looked at her books, which was a little more a socially respectable way to try to engage somebody. So then we're going out on this date, and very early on, I had the little quiet voice that's within us, our soul, and it whispered to me. It said, "This woman is a lot more conscious than you are." My ego rejected that. No way. I'm 7 years older than her. I've done all these psychedelics. I'm studying the Course in Miracles. And so as the date went on, the little voice said, "She's a lot more conscious than you are." And then I started to think maybe she was. And then I began to realize I'm not going to get a second date. I have failed in this date. It was it was true. And I went home and I could not sleep that night. I was so struck by her. And so I wrote this letter. I kind of poured out my heart to her, who I am, who I thought she was. And I said, I know I blew the first date. I don't exactly know what I did, but...
it was the wedding refrigerator combo.
No. I left out part of the story, which was we were about to sit down for the dinner, and the ceremony was over, and all I wanted to do was spend time with her, and I wanted to get a chance to see her for a few weeks at least. So I just wanted to get out of there. So I kind of made she thought, a very rude exit, and just left. I broke off in a conversation. I had to escape from there, and she thought that was very rude, and she said I was the rudest guy she'd ever seen. And so I slipped the letter under her door at like 5 a.m. and we'll call it a Hail Mary pass. I had hopes maybe the letter would, and I got a call from her later on. She said, you're absolutely right. I wasn't going to give you a second date. You're like the rudest man I've ever met. I said, but anybody that could write that beautiful letter is worth a second date. So let's try again.
Wow.
And I did better on the second date. And she says by the third date, she knew we were getting married.
Wow.
Of course, I wasn't there yet. But anyway, that's kind of that story.
That's amazing.
I always tell, my wife is still this incredibly awake, evolved person. And I always tell my guy friends, if you want to be happy in life, the first thing is marry a happy woman. Because if she's not already happy, you won't make her happy. It's like a thermostat, It's going to go back to the set point. You might, like my first wife was not a happy person, and I would fill up her bucket. It's like a bucket I'd fill up with joy and love, and then it had holes in it, so it'd all leak out. And I kept filling it up, it kept leaking out. So you got to find a happy woman. But here's the thing, women love the next part. When you find a happy woman, give her absolutely everything she wants. You'll get it back 10 times over. Because women shine, and they make our lives amazing. And our job is to let them shine and do everything we can to let that beautiful feminine energy that is the world so desperately needs, let that shine. And then you'll be happy. Promise you.
I completely agree. I think there's a lot of people in this room that would completely agree. He's on 27, 17? 21. We can just go around this room. David Yeager, how many years? 22, yeah. A lot of 32, yeah. That's amazing.
Am I the record holder at 35? I'm definitely the oldest guy here, so might be.
And I think Jen was the most trained for her wedding. By the time they had gotten married, they had gone through like 50 years of pre-therapy before the wedding, which was just amazing.
Well, I mean, all guys know women train us. That's part of their job. I mean, you might as well just get with the program. It'll be a lot easier. Just decide what you're unwilling to be trained in. You have to draw the line somewhere they won't respect you.
Yeah.
So and don't give up your purpose. Women will test you. Will you sacrifice your purpose? If you give up your purpose, you're going to lose them. Don't give up your purpose.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned earlier about if you don't keep growing, you just kind of get stale. And obviously you had a win of a lifetime with Whole Foods, and yet you continue to go on and you created Love.Life. I talked to you about it. It was actually our first time we had coffee, and it was still like just coming out. Obviously, since then, Love.Life is now opened in Manhattan Beach. I've been following I've been getting the emails. Yep. It looks really, really cool. Can you just tell us what Love.Life is and what it's about for you?
Love.Life is, it's a dream that I've had for a long time. And even going back into the Whole Foods days, back in 1985, remember I'd done the MDMA, and I wanted to open up sort of a holistic health center that would do breath work and meditation and yoga and just be a growth center. And it didn't happen, and that's in the book for why that didn't happen, but I never gave up on the dream. And I go into why I left Whole Foods, which was the hardest thing I've ever done, was leaving Whole Foods, because it's my baby. I love Whole Foods so much. But I mean, I was not really happy there any longer, and it was time for me to move. And so when you let it go, then you open up new possibilities. And so I was already working on Love.Life, but it was only when I let go of Whole Foods that it really started to blossom. Because then the energy flow moved in that direction. So what it is, it's big. It's in an old Best Buy next to one of Whole Foods Market's most successful stores in Southern California. I have this advantage of I know the sales volume of every Whole Foods Market in the country, at least what they were 2.5 years ago. And so I know where all the best locations are. And that's a perfect kind of co-tenant for us to locate next to. So we have I was just there yesterday. I flew back yesterday. And so we have a healthy food cafe. It's mostly plant-based, but we have animal foods that you can and all our animal foods come from Whole Foods, so they meet Whole Foods animal welfare standards as well. We have a state-of-the-art fitness center. We have a yoga studio. We have a Pilates studio. We've got a state-of-the-art spa. We've got the most amazing recovery modalities you've seen, from hyperbaric oxygen chambers to cryotherapy to red light therapy to 6 cold plunges to giant steam rooms to giant sauna. We have physical therapy, we have acupuncture, and we have a medical center. So that's the most differentiating part of what we're doing. So when do you get a plumber normally?
When you have a problem, a leak.
When you have a pipe breaks or something, right? When do most people go see a doctor?
When the problem's
When
there.
they're sick, exactly. So we kind of have a plumbing model of medical care. And that was fine back when infectious diseases were our biggest problem. So that you'd see a doctor, if you fell and broke your arm, you needed to get that stitched up. If you had a laceration, you'd get the cut fixed. Or if you got an infectious disease, the doctors could possibly help that, or vaccinations, antibiotics, things like that. But what kills people today are chronic diseases. The leading killers in America: heart disease is number 1, cancer is number 2, stroke is number 3, type 2 diabetes, and diabetes is like number 4. We go down the list until you get to an infectious disease like pneumonia, is like at number 6 or 7, and that is mostly taking the old people who now are really kind of worn down. So the plumber's model of health does not solve these chronic diseases. It takes decades for most people to develop a heart attack, or decades to get cancer, because it takes at least 10 years before the cells grow big enough for people to even recognize they have cancer. And these diseases manifest. To get obese, you're not born obese. You have to, no pun intended, grow into it. And so we can see these diseases. And so the new model, the new future of healthcare is, we want people to become members of Love.Life. Then first thing we're going to do is put you through a battery of testing. We have to find out what your baseline is and where you need to go. And then we're going to work, a doctor and a wellness coach will work with you, and a whole care team actually will work with you to create a precision plan for you to become the healthiest version of yourselves. Now we have this amazing technology. I just put on a continuous glucose monitor today.
Yeah.
I have an Apple Watch, and my wife wears her Oura Ring. We have data. You can download that all onto the Love.Life app. Our care team can see it. And so the idea is to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. And not just physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. So we do have breath work there. We do have meditation there. We will do psychedelic therapy when it's legal in California. We're going to work with some other companies that also work with emotional trauma, because we want to do that as well. And there's a way to measure spiritual intelligence, the degree that you're spiritually awake. So we're going to work with another company that does that. So that's the Love.Life vision. The Love.Life vision is to move away from a plumber's model of healthcare to one where the doctor's job is to keep you from needing a doctor. Mm-hmm. And the people that join Love.Life are members in a community of people that are all seeking on a journey towards better health and greater longevity. I like to ask people a question. I'll ask you, how many of you would like to live to be 100 or older? How many of you would be willing to live to be 100 if you were just as healthy then as you are today? Exactly. Most people that don't raise their hands don't want to have Alzheimer's or be decrepit and be a burden on other people. So part of it is extending not just the lifespan, but the health span. And the great thing is the way the technology is evolving and the knowledge that we're getting about healthy living. How many of you ever heard of a guy named Brian Johnson? You should go and watch on Netflix, Don't Die. So Brian Johnson's a tech guy who made $400 million, and now he's devoting the rest of his life to trying to live forever. And he's a cult leader. He's got a cult following. He's got millions of followers. And there are all these Don't Die groups. There's a Don't Die group in Austin, and you can Google it. So Love.Life's trying to do that for the masses, you might say, help people to live as long as possible and be as healthy as possible. That's basically what Love.Life's about. And by the way, we did it in LA first. We did done it in Austin first. We couldn't find a location. I also, though, if this idea won't work in LA, it won't work. It's true.
People care about their bodies, how they look. So your point is that it's got to shine, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
And so, but our second one, I promise you, will be in Austin.
Yay.
Probably our second and third locations will be here. So that's it. That's the Love.Life.
Great. Last question. We're actually going to go to an audience Q&A if that's okay. Last question for you is, you good on, I think we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Good. Life hacks, personal hacks. If you could share, not only with the audience, but there's a lot of people on my podcast, 35 to 45, kind of either had their first success in business, first successes in life. Can you give us some health hacks and life hacks that you would want to share? Maybe your favorite few hacks in life that you've learned.
Haven't I kind of been given that?
All day? Anymore? Maybe that's it.
Marry a happy woman.
Okay.
Look in the refrigerator. I mean, these are all.
You got it. You got it. That's fine.
I think in health, I think it's the lifestyle factors that are most important. People want the magic fix, but I already gave you the basic food hack, which is eat real food. Stop eating all this processed food. You're going to get eat more fruits and vegetables. I mean, I've been vegan for 21 years, but I'm not telling you have to be a vegan, but I'm telling you have to eat more plants. You have to eat more fruits and vegetables. Don't just go by social media. Look at the science. I always tell people you can find anything you want on the internet. If you Google right now, is coffee good for you? You will get thousands of people saying that it is. Or if you Google, is coffee bad for you? You'll see an equal thing. And so most people they want confirmation bias. So they go on the internet to reinforce what they want to believe. Instead, you really need to study the science. And I think the science is pretty clear. The blue zones make it clear too. The longest lived people don't eat that many animal foods. They're not vegan, but they eat mostly plants. And they get some animal foods, but we're mostly.
I'm on pins and needles. What about coffee? Because I love coffee. Do you have bad news for me?
Well, it depends on how you answer the question. So the answer is, I think you'll have to find that one out for yourself. But I will tell you that I do decaf. I got off of caffeine 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And it took me, I had withdrawal symptoms for a week, where I had headaches, nonstop headaches. And then after that, I was tired. But I always knew just one cup of coffee and I could have energy again. But I got through it. After 30 days, I got my own natural energy back. I got my own vitality back. And I stopped looking burned out. Most of the people I know that are heavy coffee drinkers, when they get to be in their 50s in particular, they kind of have this washed out look that alcoholics also frequently have. You can or somebody that's recovering from drugs. So I think caffeine, you just pay a price for it over the long term. You're better off. But coffee does have a lot of antioxidants in it. It's not a zero sum. Yeah. So I get the antioxidants from decaf without the.
I'm doing the same thing. We have low acid, heavy things, decaf. We're going to open up to the audience right now for a Q&A. Does anyone have any questions for John?
On the health hacks, very quickly, I just did the diet, but also exercise really is important.
Yeah.
And that's both some type of aerobic training, whether it be running or hiking or biking or swimming, something that gets the heartbeat up. Strength training is important.
Yeah.
I started doing Pilates a year and a half ago. Wish I started doing Pilates 30 years ago. Pilates is awesome because it does it all. Balance, strengthen the core, strengthens muscles you seldom use. It creates this flexibility, balance. Yoga, Pilates, great stuff.
You're doing pickleball and you're doing your frisbee golf.
Pickleball may not be the best thing for your body. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Good thing I do the other ones.
Yeah.
But and then the underestimated life hack is sleep. I stopped drinking alcohol because of sleep. Because my Apple Watch, anytime I drank any alcohol, even one drink, my deep sleep would go to zero. Zero. No deep sleep.
Wow.
My total sleep would drop an hour. So this was not welcome knowledge to me. I liked alcohol. I liked drinking. I liked the conviviality and the fun that went along with it. But the evidence was overwhelming. I did it. I tested it 50 times. Every time, it's like finally. Then I started experimenting without it, and then I had no more what I call throwaway days. You know, a throwaway day is when you drank a little bit, you're tired the next day. You can get through it, but you're just looking forward to getting to the end of the day. I don't have throwaway days anymore. Every day is a great day. And stress. You got to be able to manage stress in life. Stress will eat you alive, and the best thing there is meditation. Some way to relax so you can rest your mind, let your body relax. And I've been meditating a long time. Meditation's a really good thing. Mm-hmm. Those are my health hacks.
Those are good hacks.
Yeah.
Those are excellent. Well, let's thank John before we get to Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Do you have a microphone if people have questions? Okay, so how do you want to do this? Okay, I'll repeat the question on the microphone. Does anyone have any questions for John?
John, you spoke about the figurative ring of power that you had to deal with, where people constantly come for you. What was the number one lesson you gleaned from your experience from how to defend that position?
That's a very good question. Let me think about it for a second. Well, first is to be conscious that people are attracted to the ring. And so when I was younger, I was more naive, and I was betrayed by some friends that I really loved and trusted. So you should be conscious of the fact that it can be seductive. And by the way, you have to monitor yourself, because you can also,
absolutely.
Particularly young entrepreneurs that make a lot of money quickly when they're young. I've seen so many of them. One of my friends calls them the tech bros, and that's not a badge of honor for her. She feels like the tech bros are arrogant, and they think because they made some money that they're smarter than everybody else, and that who wants to be around people that think they're better than you, right? And treat you that way. So you have to monitor yourself that you don't become one of those, that you don't get addicted yourself. But then it's just being conscious of it, and also understanding that, and then doesn't change anything. You still should love everybody all the time, no exceptions. But yeah, just consciousness, just being aware, my main thing.
Cool. Sean?
How do you define love and abundance?
Well, abundance is I can answer that one. I'm going to answer that one first, then I'll do love. So I'll tell you a story that catches it for me. This is a true story. Many years ago, two great authors, Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller. Joseph Heller wrote Catch-22. And they're at this hedge fund's hosting this big party, and they're there, and Kurt Vonnegut loved to needle Joseph Heller. And so he's needling him. He says, "Say, Joe, this guy makes more money every day than you've made in your entire writing career. And then all the books you sold for Catch-22, all your other books, and every day he makes more money than you do." And he says, "What do you think about that?" And Heller thinks about it, and he says, "Well, Kurt, I have one thing he'll never have." And he said, "Well, what's that?" He says, "I have enough." That's abundance.
Yeah.
And love is, what love is. Love is that feeling that we have when we care about other people, when we care about anything. That's love. It's a feeling, it's an emotion. And I will tell you the most important thing you need to know about love is that when you judge others, that's not love. Love is not there when you're judging others. And when forgiveness is a way to restore that flow of love. But here's the most important truth. We will forget this over and over and over again. But the past doesn't exist any longer. In the next moment, you can choose love again. Doesn't matter how many times you forget it. That was in the past. Now you can choose love. And if you forget and you attack or you judge or you go back into your ego and you go into fear, that's okay. The next moment, you can go back to it. And as you practice that, the gaps when you're not in the love space shrink, and you can go back to it. And then I'm not saying I'm not always in the love space. I sometimes get afraid or I sometimes get angry, but I remember quicker and I go back to it.
Yeah.
And someday I won't forget any longer. I'll just be there all the time. And that's what I think the meaning of life is and also to be able to share that love with other people and help them to remember who they are. Because who we are in our deepest core is love. I think at some level, every one of us knows that. We just forget it. And that also is the meaning of life, in my opinion, is love. Mm. So that's what love means.
Wow. Craig?
You said this word, John, angry. I was going to ask you, do you get angry? And what makes you angry?
Well, that question really pisses me off.
No.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. I do get angry. But anger does stop the flow of love. And so I remember that, and then I let go of it, and I move on. I forgive. Forgive is the key. Forgiveness is how you let go of anger and fear. Practice forgiveness. And I just don't stay there very long. Fortunately, my wife, anytime I'm off kilter, she always looks me in the eye and says, remember who you are. Mm. And so I wish I could give her that gift, but she does never forget. So, but she's good at helping me remember.
Yeah. I actually remember, John, we were at a dinner, I think it might have been Austin 100, and there was a reporter who was just kind of harassing
reporters pissed me off, that's for sure.
And I remember, and you got pissed. I was just like, it's the first time I think I had dinner with you. I was like kind of sitting there like watching you, and he deserved it though. He was really like, first of all, it was dinner. We should have just relaxed. And he was just like rifling questions. And I think
I was probably drinking alcohol at that time.
You were done with him. I just remember that. Any other questions? Last one.
So my question for you is, what was the moment when you had a knowing that you were going to, it was time to start the process of selling Whole Foods?
Sure, that is a good story in the book. So I do tell that story in the book, and it's important. Most people don't know the backstory on that sale. I did not want to sell Whole Foods Market to Amazon or anybody else. To this day, I'd rather it stayed independent. But we were being attacked by shareholder activists. They were trying to take over our company, and the names were Jana Partners. And this is a far greater conspiracy than I'm going to go into today, but there is a conspiracy back there. I hint at it in the book, but since I can't prove it, I didn't accuse anybody, but I made some very strong hints of what I actually think happened. So the whole story did not put any of my conspiracy theories in it, but
can you share a little bit? If you don't want to. I'm actually curious because I read that chapter.
I'm not going to tell you the backstory, but I want to tell you part of the backstory. So we're being attacked by shareholder activists. They're trying to take over the company. And so the attack occurred back in 2016, 2017. And I was launching my book, The Whole Foods Diet. And so I was beginning the book tour. I was going to go on the morning show the next morning. And I was also, my first talk was going to be at Goldman Sachs, who invited me to do to be the very first one on this particular day. It's a little bit of a conspiracy theory. And so the jet sets down in New York and my phone blows up. There was, all these texts because Jana Partners had announced they'd taken an 8.8% stake in Whole Foods Market and were demanding that the board be replaced, the management be replaced, and that the company be sold. And so my whole book tour got canceled because I couldn't go on the Today Show. Nobody's going to ask about the book or the Whole Foods Diet. They're going to want to know about, that's going to be the topic. So the PR team and the marketing team said, you can't go on TV. So more or less the bookstore got, but I did go talk to Goldman Sachs because that was, it didn't matter. That wasn't national television or anything like that. So I go there, and before we go on, the president of Goldman Sachs, who was within a few months became the CEO of Goldman Sachs, comes up to me and he says, "You must be in shock right now. This was, you know, I know it's a really difficult time for you, but I want you to know that Goldman Sachs can help you. We can help you defend against this attack." Now, it's kind of weird, don't you think, that my first talk is at Goldman Sachs and they are telling me they can help me defend against this. I don't think that was an accident. And if you go deep, dive a little bit deeper, you find out that if you look at the Safeway, when Safeway was acquired by Albertsons, Jana Partners was the shareholder activist that was doing that one. You also find out Goldman Sachs was defending, and it was the same playbook, basically. And there's other stuff I will not tell you that goes a lot deeper because there was an inside somebody at Whole Foods that was connected to it as well. But I did not want to sell the company, but we got our own defense, and we had like three choices. We could try to defend ourselves, but Whole Foods needed time. We needed time to lower our prices. The whole paycheck narrative was running wild. And we had been attacked by the Department of Consumer Affairs in New York that went national about Whole Foods Market overpricing cut fruit and things like that. It was a complete extortion because California did the same thing to the supermarkets. When you do these cut fruits and things like that, you're always gonna, because of the tear weights of the containers, you're often gonna be off by a penny or two. And when California attacked us, we found out, we did our own auditing, and we found out that there was some stuff that was mispriced, but more was mispriced in favor of the customers than, but that's never reported. The same thing happened in New York. They're attacking us and accusing us of ripping consumers off, when in fact, overall, the consumers and our customers were getting a better deal. So that had really, the whole paycheck thing was that was the year before, and now we're being attacked by Jana, and it was like, we needed to drop our prices. But think about it, if you're selling something for $1 and you start selling it for 90 cents, well, in the short term, your sales are gonna go down because you were getting $1, now you're getting 90 cents. Your same store sales are gonna go down, your comp sales are gonna go down, your profits are gonna go down. Now, over time, in a year or two, and people find out how to lower prices, your sales will go up because more people will be shopping with you. That's what Whole Foods needed to do, but how were we gonna have time to do that when Jana Partners was demanding that if we dropped our prices then, our sales, our profits, everything would go down, and that would be more proof that they needed to take over the company. So we needed time. And I didn't think we were going to be able to get that time. I thought we might be able to hold them off for 6 months or something like that, but they were trying to take over our board. That was the first thing they were going to do. So the story is they wanted to meet with us. So we didn't want to meet in their offices, so they came to Austin. They had this PowerPoint presentation that they showed us, that they were showing all our investors. In the PowerPoint presentation, they took us at the all-time highest stock price we ever had, and then they showed that we'd been nothing but decline since then, and that this was proof we were running the company poorly. And there were all these inaccuracies in that PowerPoint. So the thing is over. And I said, listen, could you give me a copy of that? Because I want to address some of your concerns. I think some of the stuff you put in there is not accurate. And they said, no, you can't have it.
Wow.
And I said, well, why not? And he says, we don't care. We don't want you to have it. And they said, listen, Mackey, let me tell you what's going to happen here. We're going to take over your board. And then after we take over the board, we're going to fire you. That's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to fire anybody else on your management team that doesn't do exactly what we tell them to do. And we're going to put this company up for sale, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it. And they got up and walked out of the room.
Wow.
So it's like, whoa, okay. So then we either fight them, or we try to find a friendly buyer, somebody that would like, we tried to get Warren Buffett to buy the company. He made a joke. He said, I own Dairy Queen. This is a very bad, this is a bad brand. This is a bad brand fit for me. And so the other one was, and this is part of the conspiracy theory that I won't go into details, we could also take the company private. That's what it was all about at the end of the day. And certain people wanted to take the company private. Some of them were on our board. And this was to make that the best alternative. To take it private, the private equity people would have taken over the company then. And then they would have made some changes. They would have fired me for sure. And because I didn't want to go private. And so that they had to get me out of the way. So Jana was in some ways doing the blocking and tackling for them. Again, there are other things I just can't tell you because I can't prove it and I don't want to slander anybody. So I kept asking a question every single day. What's the win-win-win solution? What's the best thing for our customers, the best thing for our team members, the best thing for our suppliers, the best thing for our investors, and the best thing for the larger community? I asked that question again and again and again. And then one morning I woke up, and the moment I woke up, it said, what about Amazon? And that was the answer. Because Amazon, there are some, I can tell you many things I don't like about Amazon, and they made some changes I don't like. But let me sing their praises for a moment. In the first 2 years after that merger happened, they cut prices. They let us cut prices 4 times. It cost them hundreds of millions of dollars for Whole Foods to cut our prices, but we did. And we are far closer to our competitors in price. That's what we needed to do, but we couldn't do it with Jana, but Amazon let us do it. Within 30 days of the merger, Amazon raised the pay of every hourly employee in our company to higher levels. But that was back when they did the $15 an hour minimum. That was a little tough for us because that worked really well in Austin, Seattle, New York. Didn't work so well in Mobile, Alabama, where we were way above the market. We had to close a few stores in the South. Amazon didn't mess up any of our suppliers. In fact, just the opposite. They studied all of our sales by every supplier, and they picked up hundreds of our suppliers they didn't have before. So it was actually good for our suppliers. And it was great for our investors. They got a 30% more for their stock when Amazon bought it than it had been selling for before Amazon got involved. And it was good for the government. Government got lots of taxes. And it was good for our philanthropy because Amazon backed our whole Planet Foundation, our whole Kids Foundation, and our whole Cities Foundation. So all of our stakeholders won in that transaction. And we gave up our independence, but that was the win-win-win solution that came up with. Also, it enabled me, I stayed for 5 years because I committed to stay for 5 years. I didn't stay one day past 5 years. And that enabled me to leave. I don't think I'd have left otherwise until I had a heart attack and they pulled me out of there. So anyway, that's
Did you have a voice? For those 5 years, did you still have a voice?
Yes, I did, and in fact, I had some influence on Amazon. But we were talking about the Ring of Power. So I had a really good relationship with Jeff Bezos because we're fellow entrepreneurs, and he admired Whole Foods. I didn't have such a good relationship with his chief lieutenants. Think about it. I was more famous than they were. I was richer than they were, but I worked for them, and they never let me forget it.
Yeah.
So if you manage, you know that you should never always praise publicly, but if you have to reprimand somebody, don't ever do that publicly. They continued to reprimand me publicly all the time in front of Jeff's, the people below Jeff. So they were constantly putting me down. It was letting me know where I stood in the hierarchy. That was a little tough for me.
How many stores was it when the merger happened?
How many stores when the merger happened? I don't know, about 480 or something like that. But there were 540 when I retired. So we grew. We were 16 billion when Amazon bought us. When I retired, 5 years later, we were 22 billion. And I don't know what it is anymore because I'm out of the loop.
It's not fun. You're not knowing. That's great.
25 billion now or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of that backstory. You have to read. I'm a little disappointed that JP did not buy a copy of my book to give to each of you.
You know what? I was late. I did ask Molly today. I was going to actually do that, but I was late to the trigger.
I told him.
I'll tell you what, guys. Since John brought it up, if you want a copy of the book, come out, reach out to me or Cody. We will get you a copy of the book because the book is that good.
I was just pulling your leg.
I literally emailed Molly this morning.
Before we ordered it on Amazon, so you got one.
Yes.
Well, let's wrap this up, John. I know you have to go by 6:30. I want to say, John, first of all, just thank you so much for your heart, who you are. You've been an absolute inspiration to me. I actually, while you were talking, forgot that I had been to 2 of your conscious capitalism presentations many, many years ago.
Really?
Yeah. Jim Sudd, I just had met Jim Sudd, the whole thing. But I forgot, like, there was many paths where you and I crossed where I never met you. I just saw you from stage. But to be here with you today as your friend and just someone who totally inspires me. I just so appreciate you.
Well, JP, I feel the same way about you. Remember the first conversation we had, and we were like, blood brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like we were just connecting. We were talking about psychedelics, and we were talking about love, and I thought, I like this guy a lot. He's a really cool dude. I think I do know him pretty well.
I think you do know him pretty well. John, thank you so much, guys. One last thing, just if you're hungry, Cody did a phenomenal job. We have some wonderful Greek food from a local restaurant here called Artemis. Eat a little bit. It wasn't dinner, but you will really enjoy yourself. Jesse brought from his company, brought some of his whims, which if you ever want the best 1 gram of sugar or less peanut butter cup, I know it is divine. Pay attention if you get, we have some samples in there. And one last thing, if you guys want to take a look, we have a QR code. Adrian and I, if you're interested in multifamily investing, once a month we have a podcast that comes out where we talk about the market, where we see the opportunities. And starting next month, we're going to have a fear and greed index, 1 through 100, of where we see the market coming. So if you're interested, there's a QR code right behind you, right where Cody is over there. Go on the QR code and Angie will put you on our list. And we just thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for being part of the community. Thank you so much.